light for you in dark places when all other lights go out.
Hey guys, it's DCHL Devin here, and welcome to another episode of A Light in the Dark. And today we have a very special episode because I get to finally do a review of SBG Magazine. It finally came in. So I've had this magazine for a couple days now. I've had to take some time, read it, and really discuss everything that I like about it, everything I don't like about it, give a comprehensive review. I know that some guys already on YouTube have already kind of told you what's in the magazine, and of course I can go a little bit into that, but really I want to talk about what does this magazine do right? What is it that makes it worth the money that we're putting into it, and is it even worth supporting? As you guys know, I only support anything that I actually personally think promotes the hobby. That's all I care about. So but you guys know already on my Facebook page, I push this heavily. And there's a good reason why. They spent the entire year, actually more than a year, 17 months according to the shorts in this article, that talking about the fact that they've had to build the terrain, build everything for it. And remember, these guys aren't a company. This is about 7 people, or maybe about 10 people who all work together to produce this magazine. So what makes it worth it? Now, as you guys know, it's only 10 pounds, 15 pounds if you're outside the United States, which is about 20 bucks. So would I invest in a $20 magazine of this quality? Absolutely yes. If it came out every month, I probably wouldn't get it every month, and the only reason why is because that can be a bit pricey. So if they mass produced it on a scale of coming out all the time, they probably might have to lower the price, but that would mean they'd have a factory and hence cutting costs, blah, blah, blah. So they're obviously not on that scale, but for a once a year magazine or twice a year magazine, if it ever gets to that point, this is certainly worth a buy. Now, here's the reason why. First off, what I love about this magazine is that they cover all wide ranges of the hobby. They start off with James Baldwin talking about beginners in the hobby, and I guess he was a beginner, and he's talking about, he never was a competitive player, but, he's now going to attend every single GBHL tournament there is for the year, and he talks about his experiences doing that. So I like the fact that they start off grasping toward just the guys who are like, I just want to read some stuff. I'm just a hobbyist. I'm just, getting into it. Do I really want all this competitive scene stuff? And without spoiling really too much, James Baldwin's experience is extremely positive on the competitive scene. And I love this because it promotes the fact that, it's not all about the competition. Even at our competition in Nova, we highly stress it's about the community. It's about all the stuff you can do, all the people you're meeting. That's what it's about. So, James seemed to have really gotten that experience, and he just talks about his tale of that. So I like the fact that they include little articles like that aren't for the hardcore gamers. You guys may have also known it from Damien's old articles of his Dr. Grant articles, where he just talks about his experiences in the hobby and such. So, then we have Damien does post a little page about talking about all the little trivia facts, and that's always, of course, interesting. And the fact that they're coming back to Nova, they talked about it as being the highlight of the year. So actually, that's pretty awesome. But more importantly, they got they talk about how many words are in the magazine and how many photos were taken and how many number of hours before the bat rep was finished. And it's actually pretty awesome. So you guys, these little trivia snippets, but let's get into the meat of this entire thing. And so it starts off with Tom's Top 10. Now you might be wondering, wait a minute, we already had a Tom's Top 10 in the last article. Why is he revisiting this? Well, what he noticed is that all the top 10 most undercosted heroes, by the way, that's the full title of the article, Tom's Top 10 Undercosted Heroes. He noticed that models that had 3 attacks and 3 wounds weren't on that list. So he wanted to break it down into an analysis of, well, wait a minute, why are they not on this list? Does that mean they're just pointed better, or are they pointed differently? So he goes on the most painstaking journey of explaining how he came up with all of these like facts. First off, the task is mind-blowing enough in order to figure out how the points are even assigned. And he spends almost the whole page just trying to show you, here's how he came up with that. It's actually incredibly detailed, but written in such a way that it doesn't like bore a person who's not good at like math or anything. It's not like math intensive. He just talks about the logical train he had to go on in order to figure this out. This was an awesome article. He then comes up with his top 10, part 2, for heroes that have 3 wounds and 3 might of undercosted heroes. And admittedly, he admits this is not an exact science, but seeing how he came up with at least the basic or the overall structure of it is actually extremely interesting. So I do applaud this article. I applaud it because you can tell that this article is one of the hardest ones to write. There's a lot of time, a lot of energy that goes into this, as he knows his audience is a whole bunch of geeks and guys who love facts and figures and such. We love talking about how likely it is for a dice to get this roll or whatever, and win a game through strategy and analysis. So if you're going to be talking to us, you really have to have your facts down, and Tom really spends a lot of time doing this. I can easily say this is one of the highlights of the article, in my opinion. Of the magazine. Definitely worth a read. I always make sure to get Tom's articles for at least myself personally because of how well structured they are. The next thing they get into is a bat rep. Now the thing that's special about this bat rep is the fact that it's on Dual Door, and if you haven't seen that, it is an amazing board made by Barry O'Neill. It is incredible, and they have fully painted models made by Matt Davies and Shadow and Flame and all of them, and so they go into the Fall of the Necromancer, Siege of Dual Door, and they treat this as Peter Jackson envisioned it in his original concept. So as you know on the screen, it's just like 4 dudes against the Necromancer in 12 ring race. That is no longer the case. They have decided to make it an all-out siege, and the reason why, and they posted in a designer's note, is that Peter Jackson originally intended it to be an actual siege, but over time, I guess, the things fell apart. And so they had to reduce it down to the actors you see on screen today. So, as far as a bat rep, it's hard to rate a bat rep as whether it's good or not. This is the enjoyment. It depends on what you're trying to get out of it. And I think they did a very good job of that. They made a lot of special rules. There's actually 2 pages of special rules here in order to make it feel much, much more like a narrative experience. That's what they wanted this to be, a narrative experience, but also a tactical one. They talk about a lot of the tactical decisions they made, and so you're getting not only that experience of just reading a book almost, but also in kind of in a vague way, a strategy guide of, okay, this is how I would deal with this situation and whatnot. Now, it's a little hard because they have so many models in the field, so many things, but they devote most of the magazine. I would say a large majority of this magazine is devoted toward the bat rep, and you can tell this took a ton of their time. In fact, I'd argue it's almost half the magazine is this bat rep and divided into subparts and stuff like that. So, ultimately, if you want to see one of the most incredible battles ever done in SBG on like this amazing board of Tom versus Matt Davies, this article, this whole magazine is for you. All right, but if you're not interested in bat reps and you're not interested in reading those special scenarios, those things, then I will advise half this magazine is that bat rep. So make sure you just understand that going in. I personally love the bat rep. I thought it was fantastic. They wrote it. You could tell that most of the time and energy was spent rewriting this and making sure that it was entertaining to read. So personally, I had no problem reading this. They have a bunch of little notes and stuff, and they also keep it fun by adding in their own little snippets in between. So I personally love this bat rep. I think that it's just worth a read. Just if you're not into battle reports of the written form, then I still think it was worth a read, just because it was well written. So the next thing we get into, there is an overview. Now this article is an overview, I will say, of Ed Ball, the legendary Ed Ball GBHL champion of like 5 years going until he just got dethroned this year. But Ed Ball, or last year, sorry. Talking about ring race. Of course. So if you guys don't know who he is a legendary player, always plays with his Fell Beast list with his Nazgul and Wings. It's actually a very difficult list to play. He is known as one of the best strategists of the GBHL area in general. He's very difficult to play. And so he breaks down his opinion and thoughts of the 9. Now, here's what I say about this article. He really needed more pages. He gives a general overview. He won't teach anything to expert veteran players that you didn't already know. It's just kind of like, you know, okay, you're reading his thoughts, and his thoughts are always interesting because they're coming from Ed Ball. But for beginners, this is very useful because he even goes into his own uses for like the Tainted or the Dwimmerlake. However, covering all 9 ring rays in the short amount of time he had, I believe he's devoted 5 pages. So covering all the ring rays in that amount of time is really, really difficult. I applaud his efforts. This is a general overview, though, I must stress. He can't go into pros, cons, how to use, you know, tactics. What do you do in this situation? He just simply says, all right, you know, here's the good things about each ring wraith. And that seems to be the focus of the article. Let me tell you about the good side of each ring wraith. How would I think of them? You know, not how would I use them, but like how would I actually think of them? And so this is actually very good if you're just getting into ring wraiths and you want to just kind of develop a knack for them. So that article, I give it a thumbs up, especially for beginners. So we got multiple articles for beginners, multiple articles for tacticians, high tactic players, then a full bat rep narrative going to many, many turns, which of course a battle like that would take a lot of turns. Now, they even cover the hobbyists. This is awesome. I personally loved this part of the magazine. I think will be a lot of people's favorites. All right, now I know I said I loved the Tom article. I loved it. Bat rep is good. Matt Davies, Shadow and Flame, breaking down the how they made the ring rays and how they made the Necromancer. Now they could have made this simple. They could have just simply talked about it, but no, they go into history of how they made the models. They go into the base model used. They go into how they sculpted it. They go into identifying each of the 9. They break it down into poses, weapons, materials, armaments, all of it. And you know, Shadow and Flame does a very detailed, very entertaining article of how he first originally developed the Necromancer. And this article, these two, in my opinion, are some of the most powerful pieces in it because they're so inspirational. These 2 articles improve your hobby. Like they bring it to a level where now you can make, or at least you feel like you can make works of art just like these. And so I definitely applaud the use of that. And I really like the fact that they're going to be adding more of their articles in the next edition of the magazine because there's a lot still. Steve Crow has his spiders. Matt Davies has to talk about how he made Dual Door. Barry O'Neill, sorry, has to go into how he made Dual Door. So these articles are fantastic. I love these articles. I'd say that anything that's educational is worth the price of the magazine alone, in my opinion, especially coming from 2 experts such as Matt Davies and Shadow and Flame. Dave actually is the one who talks about this whole thing. But yes, guys, do I say it's worth the price? Absolutely. There is so much in here that you have for beginners, you have for just general reading, you have for narrative, and you have for the hobby itself, your hobby experience, that I would say this magazine truly gets an A for this one. I'd say the only thing missing from this, if I want to talk about a negative at all right, what I do miss is fake profiles. Now, as you guys know, the GBHL, we're intending for issue 4 to be a ton of fake profiles or such that we can carry on the hobby ourselves in case GW dropped the game. They didn't drop the game, so that idea was canceled. And admittedly, I was trying to work with them on that. We were actually going to adopt everything they posted in this magazine for all our tournaments and actually make them tournament legal. We were actually going to really ride this game out, which is why in a lot of my videos in the past, for those of you guys who are long-term viewing, you know that I've said multiple times, guys, we're fine. This hobby will be okay. Don't worry about it if GW drops it. And but actually, I was going to even go further. Unreleased miniatures and such, producing the models. I was going to help, push them forward into producing what we need for this hobby. So ultimately, though, they're not going to do that. However, it is always a nice experience to see some new profiles. You guys remember the old White Dwarfs, where they talked about profiles for the fiefdoms that are never going to come out. They're never going to be supported. You talked about all the different Ent profiles, the ash tree, the birch, all those. They're never going to be supported by GW. We know this, and that's okay. They produced it anyway, all the different orc stuff. Also, they came up with rules for weather environments, all those type of things. If we could have, the bat rep was long, all right? So I understand they had to take up a bulk of this magazine. But if we could have something of that nature, I think that that is the only thing that I would say would be an improvement over what you guys have here. But that is literally my only negative criticism. That's it. And to be honest, they have 48 pages to work with, and they did their best to cram as much as they could into this. And admittedly, people want a bat rep of Dol Guldur. That is what you buy this issue for. You want to hear all about Dol Guldur, the ring rays, everything like that. You want all of that history in there. And so I think they did a good job for this issue. And I think, yeah, they gave the fans exactly what they wanted. So I say that this is worth a buy. It was definitely worth my money, and I will go ahead and continue to review the SBG magazines in the future. But let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think about what I've said today? What would you have liked to seen in this review? And just give me in the comment section below, and I will talk to you very soon.